What's up everyone, welcome back to yet some more Reddit stories about entitled people, insane people, and all that kind of stuff. Hope you're all doing awesome today, and as usual, be sure to subscribe if you haven't yet for more Reddit content, and we're getting right into today's stories. Guests demanding refunds because Florida isn't supposed to be cold. And for quick context, for those who may not know, around January 21st, 2025, the state of Florida recently got record amounts of snow, about 9 to 10 inches. Which, yeah, is a lot for Florida. I'm currently an extended stay guest at a hotel. I've gotten to know the staff very well, and there is one front desk worker with whom I've become good friends. Knowing she was working a double shift the other day, I picked up dinner for her when I went to get my own takeout. Whenever I do this, I always wait quietly to the side of the front desk until all the other guests have been assisted, and I can then give her the food and say hello for a few minutes. Well, this particular day, Thursday of this past week, there was an abnormal number of people in line waiting to be helped by the sole front desk employee. Her second shift coverage called out sick. Thus, the poor front desk employee was effectively solo, and all I could feasibly do was quietly wait and observe until all guests had exited the front desk area. Everyone in line was bundled up in massive parkas with scarves and gloves. It was 35 degrees in Florida that day. But if you'd merely seen a picture of the front lobby, you'd have thought the hotel was in Minneapolis, Chicago, or somewhere in New England. Then I began to hear a woman get louder and more aggressive with a front desk employee because she wanted a refund since she'd booked a week-long trip to Florida. But there was a cold front plus foggy cloud cover, and she hadn't been able to, quote, experience Florida's warm weather and sunshine. Obviously, the front desk employee said she couldn't refund the guests for the previous 5 nights of her stay since she'd already completed those days, but she could refund her for the following 2 nights and cancel those 2 days of the reservation. As this conversation was going on, the people in line began talking amongst themselves, and then eventually to people coming in to get coffee from the lobby, about how they could get refunds for their stays because of the weather. The line at the front desk grew longer after the chatter made its way to more guests walking in. Eventually, the front desk employee had to call the owner several times before the initial guests and her party were given refunds for their final 2 nights, once those nights were removed from the reservation. Apparently, she was with a group comprising 5 rooms total. But what followed was a series of subsequent guests going up to the desk asking for discounts on their stays, or refunds because they weren't able to enjoy the marina, outdoor tiki bar, or poolside area. The pool itself is heated to 85 degrees, because it was in the 30s, 40s, or 50s all week and unusually rainy, foggy, and cloudy. One couple from Europe screamed at the front desk employee about how they'd flown over to Florida for the sunny, warm weather, but didn't get to enjoy it, and how the weather was forecast to become warmer the day they were scheduled to leave. What baffles me is that it wasn't just a single guest who tried to get a refund based on something as utterly ridiculous as the weather. I swear that I've never heard such a ridiculous thing in my life, much less from several different guests. Yes, the word-of-mouth train did disseminate the false notion that guests could get refunds due to the weather, and that prompted more people to line up at the front desk. But damn, just the first woman demanding a refund due to weather is absurd. I'm posting this now because I just saw the front desk employee for the first time since last Thursday when the saga unfolded. And she said that the first woman ended up being compensated for her entire stay the following day because she came back and spoke with the owner who gave in. This has to be the most ridiculous reason to ask for a refund though, right? My neighbor's free-range chihuahuas are biting people. We recently bought our first home and moved into a new neighborhood. We've tried hard to be friendly and have a positive relationship with all of our neighbors, many of whom are longtime renters in a generally lower-income neighborhood. We've had all kinds of issues that we can live with, like domestic disputes in the street, inconsiderate parking, piles of trash, and dumping, and we're trying to roll with it. We're the newcomers. But the lady next door has 2 vocal and ornery chihuahuas, and one great big bully breed mix that she lets out her front yard. This would be fine, but the chihuahuas can walk right through the spaces in her fence and into the street. They're constantly running around our block, barking at and terrorizing people. It's gotten to the point where people won't walk their dogs down our street because the chihuahuas will surround and attack them. I've generally tried to tolerate the chihuahuas despite the fact that they carry trash into our driveway, occasionally get into our backyard, bark at us constantly, etc. But in November, they bit a friend of mine who was over visiting as she was getting into her car. It wasn't a bad bite, but was pretty upsetting for her. Last month I adopted a dog, 18-month-old lab border collie mix, who was sweet but very nervous with other dogs because of time in the shelter. Every time I try to walk her, the first and last 5 minutes as we are near my house are just actively trying to keep the chihuahuas from attacking us. They surround us and bark and snarl and nip her. She's terrified and often panics, thrashing and trying to get away. Twice I've gotten to the point of kicking them pretty forcefully to keep them from biting my dog. I am not an animal kicker, and before this had never kicked an animal in my life. Today I had a contractor out to look at our rain gutters, and he called me in a panic from the front yard asking to be let in. I came out in time to watch one of them get a steel-toe boot to the side after biting him, and he was clearly flustered. I said, probably louder than I needed to, "The little monsters need to be kicked. I've kicked them too. I wish they weren't in our yard all the time biting people." The owner of the dogs must have seen or heard this because she came out of her house and called them inside, then just sat on her stoop and mean-mugged us until he left. I am not really sure what to do. I don't want to make enemies or feel like the Karen by calling animal control on them. But we also can't have our friends and visitors getting bit and can't let our dog get attacked daily. The lady clearly knows this is an issue. People literally scream at these dogs in the street daily. They've made some half-ass attempts at keeping them in by putting up cardboard or old shelves, etc. around their fence, but nothing ever works for more than a day or two. Scratching up a car with my wheelchair after their illegal parking left me with insufficient space to pass. I, 25 UK, use a powered wheelchair full-time, and I do not own a car or even a license. The other day I was coming home from a late appointment at maybe 6 p.m. It was an hour trip on the bus to get to the clinic and another hour to get back, plus an extra few minutes either side for the long walk between my apartment building and the bus stop. It was raining heavily, which messes with my wheelchair and makes it very difficult to brake once I start moving, and very difficult to steer. I use my hands to control speed and direction. On my way home I ran into a roadblock, or rather a sidewalk block. Someone had illegally parked their car up on the pavement, leaving about 17 to 18 inches of space between the vehicle and a brick wall. Just about enough to squeeze through, but not enough to do so without damaging the car. I stopped and thought about it for a while. My options were to turn around, find somewhere I could safely exit the sidewalk and drop into the road and go home that way, or I could just go past the car. No surprises from the post title, I ended up just going past the car, and I gouged some gnarly scratches in it since the gap was about the same width as my chair. It was just cosmetic damage, none of the car's internal organs were affected, so to speak, but the scrapes were nasty and the paint job was thoroughly ruined. Going between the car and the wall also did some damage to my wheelchair, but I'm planning to get silicone covers for my push rims so that it doesn't scratch my hands to pieces in the future. Honestly, what I did to that person's car would probably cost a small fortune to fix. I felt bad. But here's a few extra details. There were no ramps, drop curbs, or safe places to get from the sidewalk to the road anywhere nearby. I would have needed to make an extra 200 meters or so of travel to avoid this person's vehicle. My wheelchair was at critical battery level, flashing at me to charge immediately because it could go kaput at any moment. The weather definitely didn't help with the battery life. There was maybe a 50-50 chance of me making it that extra 200 meters without my chair dying while I was still outside in the rain, and I can't move without the power. I was afraid of being stranded. After I went past the car, I noticed several empty parking spaces just a short distance away, which the driver could have used instead of blocking the path. These weren't even spaces you had to pay to use. If I were to call the police, I'm not sure my wheelchair would have lasted the duration of the phone call, let alone the time it would have taken for the cops to deal with the problem. My disability makes me highly temperature sensitive, so being cold for prolonged amounts of time is dangerous for me. Hence, I didn't really want to wait outside in the freezing rain for this person to move their car. Currently, I feel a little bit guilty about my actions, but not that much. I don't know if I did the right thing, but I don't really regret it either. And a commenter here also said this. So as a wheelchair user with a battery life, I think I have a better view than able-bodied people who literally have no concept of what the situation entails. If you're risking further injury or illness, do what you need to do to get somewhere warm, sheltered, and safe. Period. Full stop. If this means damaging a car because the driver made a conscious choice that could harm others, so be it. Y'all have no idea how bad it can go for us who need these assistance tools. The driver made a choice to convenience themselves at the expense of the public. Regardless of how many parking spots there were at any time, this was an illegal, thoughtless choice. If their vehicle is damaged and there's video involved, insurance will wash their hands of the affair. The police will likely ticket the driver for obstructing the sidewalk. I assume anyone angry about the damage to the car either parks like this regularly or has no concept of the actual risk of a situation like this to a wheelchair user, even an ambulatory one. Yeah, the way I see it is what OP did was neither malicious nor a deliberate act of vandalism. They didn't seem to want to do it to get back at them or anything like that. They simply had to make the choice to do this for their own safety, simple as that, since it seems like all the other options had a pretty good chance of putting them in a dangerous situation. Distracting censorship. Where I work, many of my coworkers have visible tattoos, and it's never been an issue. Even some of the assistant managers and higher-ups have tattoos that can be seen while in uniform. For some context, during the summer months, we are allowed to wear shorts if we want to do so. I get very warm during the summer and just don't handle the heat well, so I opt to wear shorts almost every day from May to August. I have a tattoo of a mermaid on the side of my leg. It's a typical American traditional mermaid and she has breasts. The nipple of the mermaid is a black dot, simple and small. It's not overly sexualized or graphic. Plus it's on the side of my lower leg mixed in with many other tattoos, so it doesn't stick out. For a few weeks I've had no issues with the tattoo. I even had one manager comment on my leg pieces saying he liked the style. However, one day, one of the assistant managers came up to me and told me my tattoo was all of a sudden inappropriate and out of line for work. She demanded I wear pants or completely cover the chest of the mermaid tattoo every day. I asked her if a customer had complained or if our manager had said something. She said no, that only she took offense by the tattoo and she demanded I cover it. I asked a bunch of people and they thought she was being ridiculous, but this particular manager had a history of steamrolling over everyone and getting her way. Even other assistant managers had issues with her in the past. So I decided, fine, I have to cover the nipples of the mermaid. That's what I should do then. I went to several craft stores to find as many seashell sea-themed stickers I could find. I also bought some small gemstone stickers and thread. I used the gemstone and thread to make tiny breast tassels for the mermaid. They were super cute and drew lots of attention. I had coworkers and customers all commenting on how cute the tassels were and how creative it was to do that as a cover. The assistant manager that had forced me to cover the tattoo saw what I had done and she wasn't pleased. She had thought I would use band-aids or something to cover the tattoo instead. But I got her to admit that I was technically following her demand as the mermaid nipples were no longer visible. The longer I had to keep the tattoo covered, the more creative I got with it. I used all sorts of fun, flashy stickers and designs. I even used googly eyes at one point. All my coworkers loved it as they agreed it was unnecessary to demand me to cover the tattoo in the first place. Eventually, that assistant manager was fired, and when she left, I stopped covering the mermaid. I haven't had any issue with any other managers about it, so I think the issue is resolved, and at least I had some fun while it lasted. Anyway guys, that's going to be all for today. Thank you for watching, I appreciate it. And as always, if you enjoyed, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more Reddit content like this. So I'm out of here, take care, and I'll see you next time.